You've saved up $5,000. First of all, I just want to applaud you for that because that is pretty significant. That's a lot of money to have saved up. So maybe you've been working a part-time job on top of your other job, or maybe you've just been a really good saver and you have accumulated $5,000. So it's something a lot of people don't have the ability to do, is to save up a substantial amount of money like that. But your question is, how should I invest that $5,000? Because right now it's probably sitting in your checking account or your savings account earning some fraction of a percentage of interest from your bank. And you're saying, okay, is there any way I can make more money from that? Absolutely, you can. But based on your circumstances, I have 4 different things I'm going to recommend as far as investing that $5,000. And really what it comes down to is whether you're looking to invest that money long term, or if that's money you're going to use maybe a couple of years down the road. Maybe in 5 to 10 years you plan on buying a house, or maybe you're going to need to buy a car in a couple of years, but you want to do something with the money short term. So I have a couple different examples here of how I would recommend investing $5,000. And if you guys aren't quite at $5,000, but if you have $1,000 saved up, that was the last video I did called How to Invest $1,000, and I will link up to that at the end for you if you guys are curious about that at all. And then I'm going to continue this series. Probably next I'll do How to Invest $10,000, so be on the lookout for that. Anyways, the first thing I'd recommend if you're looking to invest $5,000 is to open up a Roth IRA. If time is on your side, let's say you're a young person, maybe you're in your 20s or your early 30s, something like that, or maybe even younger. Maybe you're super ambitious and you're 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there, and you're super young, then time is definitely on your side. So your best bet is to open a Roth IRA to invest long term for your retirement. Now, I'm sure you've heard of a 401k, which is generally is sponsored by an employer. So once you work for a company and you're a full-time employee, one of the benefits they offer is an employee-sponsored 401k. And if you're lucky, your employer will also match your contributions up to a certain percentage. So that's something you consider as well. But anyways, a Roth IRA is separate from that traditional 401k that's sponsored by your employer. With a Roth IRA, the taxes are paid ahead of time, and there is a limit to your contribution for your Roth IRA, and it depends on your age, also what income limit you fall under, or your income bracket with the IRS. So basically, in 2016, and this may change in 2017, but this is the most recent figure, but in 2016, if you're under 50 years old, you can contribute $5,500 a year to that Roth IRA. Well, that's what you could do in 2016. So if you have $5,000 to invest, you could almost max out your Roth IRA contribution for the year. And if you're over 50 years old, you can contribute up to $6,500 to a Roth IRA. Now, like I said, you need to fall within the IRS income limit, which as of 2016, if you file single, that's $117,000 of income. So that's something to consider as well. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, that number is way far off, but maybe for other people, you're close enough to that limit where you say, okay, maybe I want to contribute to a Roth IRA before I go over the limit and I'm no longer allowed to. The other thing is, too, to contribute to a Roth IRA, you need to have earned income, which the best way to explain that is basically you're getting paid to do a certain type of work. So that it's kind of like money that you're actually earning from a job or from some other income source, but it has to fall under what the IRS classifies as earned income, which most of us wouldn't have that problem anyway, but I just figured that was worth mentioning. Anyways, so a traditional 401k is employee sponsored, and you don't pay taxes when you purchase into that plan. You pay taxes when you redeem. So that's why with a 401k, a traditional 401k, it's tax deductible because it comes off of how much you made that year. It's almost as if you didn't make that money because you're putting it away tax-free. But when you redeem it at retirement, you'll pay taxes at that point. But with a Roth IRA, since you're buying it basically with money you already paid taxes on, you've paid the taxes up front, and it's like a personal retirement fund. And the advantage to this is that your Roth IRA will grow tax-free over time. You don't have to pay taxes if you redeem it within the certain guidelines of when you have to redeem. And there's certain figures on it, but likely by the time the 20 and 30-year-olds have reached retirement, that will change. But you guys could do research on that if you're curious what the limit is right now of how early you can redeem a Roth IRA or a 401k. Anyways, so the other thing that's cool about a Roth IRA is that you can use up to $10,000 of earnings from a Roth IRA towards the purchase of your first home penalty-free. So if you put money into a Roth IRA now, let it grow over time, and you had earnings at that point, money that the stocks or whatever it's invested in have earned, you can use those earnings and put it towards your home. The other thing that's cool too is you can take out any contributions to a Roth IRA at any time without paying a penalty, but it's only when you take out the earnings that you would pay a penalty. So if you contributed $5,000 to a Roth IRA and then 3 years from now took $5,000 out because you contributed that much, there would be no penalty with that. But if you tried to take out money that you had earned, at that point you would pay taxes on that money, and a significant amount of taxes. So you want to make sure that you're in it for the long run, or you're putting it aside and going to use that towards the purchase of a home. Otherwise, you probably don't want to be putting money you're going to want to use short term into a Roth IRA. Now, if you're looking to open a Roth IRA, the two most common providers that I see are Fidelity and Vanguard. I don't actually have a Roth IRA yet. I just have my personal, well, actually my employee-sponsored 401k, and that's through Vanguard, and they have a nice platform. It's pretty straightforward and easy to follow. Anyways, the second way to invest $5,000. Let's say you're somebody who plans on buying a car or buying a house or something in the very short term. Maybe you have 3, 4, 5 years, something like that, and then you're planning on using this cash. Well, rather than have that money sit in your checking account, why not open up a certificate of deposit? So this will basically give you short-term access to cash with a guaranteed rate of return. Now, don't expect any crazy rate of return with a CD. They're generally a lot lower than what you would get from like any other type of investment or a mutual fund. They're going to be a lot less than that. Probably somewhere in the range of what a bond would give you, maybe even less in some cases. But it is something, and any rate of return is better than nothing. So rather than let that money sit in your checking or your savings account, you might as well open up a certificate of deposit for a guaranteed rate of return for however long you're not planning on using that money. The advantage to this too is you're getting your rate of return and it's guaranteed, so you know what you're going to get. The only thing is you have to make sure you commit to that maturity rate of the CD, because if you redeem that CD early, there's a lot of penalties associated with that, and it might wipe out all the earnings that you made even in these initial years. If you basically closed out that CD maybe a year or two earlier than the maturity date, it could wipe out all those earnings from the years prior. So just make sure if you're investing in a certificate of deposit, you commit to that maturity date. Okay, so the third way to invest $5,000 would be to invest in a stock portfolio. This is probably going to be the one that most people are leaning towards, just because that's the kind of videos that I make on my channel here are mostly related to the stock market, because I trade a lot of individual stocks and I love educating people on the stock market and learning more about it myself. I would say for anybody who's looking to learn as much as possible, I would recommend investing in individual stocks. Now, there is much higher risk when investing in individual stocks, but this will be the most active form of investing that you'll have, because you got to understand with things like a 401k or a Roth IRA or mutual funds, things like that. Those are very passive investments. They're the kind of investment where you basically you contribute to it, and maybe you continue to contribute over time, but you don't do anything with it itself because they're managed by other groups. So with a stock portfolio, you yourself are managing the investments. So if you want to be more active with your investments, start a small stock portfolio. Here's a couple ways you could do this. Let's say there's a company that you just absolutely love. Maybe you're just so into Apple or Facebook or one of these big companies, and you really support them and you see them having tremendous success in the years to come. Well, why not invest $5,000 in a company that you'd be really proud to own? And then when you're out with your friends, you can brag and be like, hey, I have a couple hundred shares of Apple or whatever it is. That's probably unrealistic because their stock price is high, but whatever it ends up being, you could be like, oh, I have $5,000 of Apple stock or Google stock or Facebook, any company. Those are just a couple examples. I know a lot of millennials like those stocks because they're tech stocks, but maybe there's a company that you really support and you want to get behind and you want to invest your money in them. Another example would be to invest $1,000 in 5 different companies. Now, you could do 5 different companies of the same sector or industry if you see an industry that you feel will be coming into favor in the near future. Or to be further diversified, you could pick 5 different industries and invest in your favorite company in each one. So it all depends on how diversified you want to be. And obviously, the more diversified you are, the less risk there should be with that. So if you're looking to mitigate risk, be more diversified, but if you'd rather invest in something you're proud of or a company you really enjoy, why not go all in with that company? Just make sure you do your research beforehand. Another thing you could do as well, this is popular, is investing in dividend stocks. So maybe invest with $1,000 in 5 different stable companies that pay a nice dividend. What I want to recommend to you guys, this is DRIP here, that stands for a dividend reinvestment program. Make sure if that's available to you that you go ahead and do that, because that's how you can take advantage of compounding with your investment. So what happens is every quarter when those stocks pay a dividend, it automatically gets reinvested into the stocks that you have. You generally don't have to pay any commission on that trade, and at that point you own more stock shares, and each of those shares will then earn dividends in the future as well. That is the beauty of compounding, and compounding in and of itself can make you very rich. So make sure you set up a dividend reinvestment plan if you're going to go ahead and invest in dividend stocks. And you could also invest $5,000 in one dividend stock if you really like that company. There's no reason not to do that. The only thing I would suggest is avoid investing less than $1,000 in any one given stock, because you have to consider your cost for commission. So just for me personally, I trade with Scott Trade, and it's $7 a trade. So when I buy a stock, I pay $7. When I sell it, I pay $7. So it's like $14 for a round trip on a stock. So anytime you're making an investment, understand that you have to earn enough from that stock to offset that commission. So it's just something to consider. I know I have a lot of people reaching out to me. They'll say, hey, I have $1,000. Should I invest in 10 different stocks or one different stock? And my answer is always, I would invest in one stock, at most $500 in 2 different stocks, because if you invest only $100 and you have $14 of commission to offset, that means that stock price has to come up 14% just to break even. So the more that you have invested in the stock, the easier it is to offset that commission cost. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there to you guys. And like we said, the more diverse you are with your investments, the better you are. And I wouldn't suggest individual stocks are your main investment. They're not for me either. I have my 401k, I have my mutual fund, and then I also have my individual stocks. So it's kind of a small portion of my portfolio, but I really enjoy trading stocks, and if it's something you're interested in, I recommend doing it. Just don't make that your sole investment, because it is higher risk trading individual stocks. It should be part of your overall portfolio. But like I said, you'll definitely learn the most trading individual stocks because they're the most active investment. I would just recommend investing in stocks that you're looking to hold long term, because the more you're trading in and out of stocks, the more you're paying for commission, and that becomes kind of an expensive investment. Just something to throw out there. Anyways, before I get into number 4, I just want to mention, in the last video I also talked about mutual funds. This is also a great idea. I just didn't want to cover it again because I would just basically be repeating the same information but saying $5,000 instead of $1,000 this time. So if you guys want to listen to me talking about investing in mutual funds, watch the video on how to invest $1,000. So that could apply to this as well. You could easily invest $5,000 into a mutual fund. In fact, when I opened my first mutual fund, that's what I started out with, was $5,000. So that's a great amount of money to set aside for that. Anyways, number 4 is to start a business. And I had also mentioned this in that first video on investing $1,000, but when you have $5,000, you can potentially start a business that has a small upfront cost. And this is the investment that will earn you the greatest return on investment, because you get to have sweat equity in that business. So the harder you're willing to work, the more work you put in, the more money you're going to generate from that investment. So I just have a couple of business ideas for you guys that have a small upfront cost. Number 1 would be a virtual assistant. So maybe you have to spend the money on a computer, a nice telephone system, but at that point you could be a virtual assistant for clients and companies. And if you're already tech savvy and good at a lot of stuff on the computer, being a virtual assistant, you get paid by the hour, and you can make a lot of money doing that, and you could do it with your own job. Maybe when you get home from work, you do this for a couple hours, maybe you do it on the weekends. Or it could be your full-time job. I know a lot of people doing this full-time. There's a lot of money to be made doing this. Number 2, application development. Again, this is kind of technology-based, so you would need to have some knowledge of software. But you could either be an application developer for other companies or other individuals, or you could go and do it for yourself and invest the money into your own apps that you hope to sell or advertise on down the road. So these are the kind of investments that I like, because you're building something for yourself and you own this, and at that point that can generate a lot of money for you. Next would be like event planning. So maybe you want to invest in like stuff that you would need for any kind of event. So maybe tables, tents and stuff, sound equipment. And that's the kind of stuff, maybe you could have a hospitality business where you would set up for people, rent out the equipment for the day, and charge people maybe $500 or $1,000 for the day for all that equipment. And you own and maintain it, but they pay you to use it and to set it up and dismantle it. So that's another business. The other thing too to think about, maybe you were going to go out there and buy, the blow up bouncy houses and rent them out to kids' parties. These are, a lot of people think these businesses are kind of crazy. I know in my last video on how to invest $1,000, I mentioned getting your clown certification and going to parties as a clown. And I had a couple people comment, they're like, "Are you kidding? Is this a joke?" And I'm like, it sounds like a joke, but there's probably a lot of money to be made being a clown for a kid's party. So maybe this sounds crazy to go out there and buy a bouncy house, but think about that. If you could rent that out every single weekend during the warm weather, that could generate a lot of money for you. Next would be maybe a vending machine business. So if there's a lot of laundromats or places in your area where there's not vending machines, you could buy the vending machines, go into the business and say, "Hey, can I place this here? I'll give you 10%. Or what's the more popular thing to do is say, "Hey, I give 10% profits to charity. Can I put this in your business? You can help me earn money and also give money to a charity." A lot of people like to leverage that so they don't have to pay the business itself the money because it's kind of hard to keep track of. So you could always try doing it that way. And then the last thing I have on here is a handyman or a lawn care business. So maybe you need to invest the upfront costs into a truck or some tools or some kind of limited liability insurance to start your own business, or maybe some lawnmowers, stuff like that. And I just wanted to throw in a story here quick. As far as this handyman business goes, I was out, it was actually just my 22nd birthday over the weekend. And actually, I'm not sure when I'm uploading this video, but it was recently my 22nd birthday, and I went out to a couple bars with my friends just to hang out. And I ran into this guy who seemed like he definitely looked like a tradesman, kind of maybe a little rough around the edges. And he told me that his job is basically to go to all these bars when somebody just destroys the bathroom and he cleans out the toilets. And I was like, "Oh man, that's a terrible job." And he's like, "Yeah, it sounds pretty bad, but I made over $200,000 last year," and my jaw just dropped. And maybe he was gloating. I don't know if he's being completely factual with that, but hey, that's hard work, man. There's a lot of sweat equity going into that. But if he's making $200,000 cleaning up toilets at bars, that's not a bad way to do it, man. That's a good amount of money. So maybe start your own handyman business, something like that. If you're willing to get down and work and do those dirty jobs, there's some serious money to be made. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this video. Like I said, next I'll probably be doing how to invest $10,000, so be on the lookout for that. If you guys have any questions about what I covered in this video, or questions in general about the topics I cover on this channel, feel free to drop me a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, click like, and then please subscribe to be notified of future uploads. And I thank you guys for watching this video.